Hello, everyone. We often hear that emotions make us weak, that they cloud our judgment and lead us astray. But what if the real problem isn't our emotions themselves, but how we handle them? Emotions are not the enemy. In fact, they are one of the most powerful tools we possess. They guide us, warn us, and connect us to others. However, when left unchecked, emotions can become our greatest opponent, sabotaging our decisions, controlling our actions, and leading us down paths we never intended to take. Think about the last time you made a decision purely out of anger or fear. Maybe it was a message you sent that you later regretted. Maybe it was an opportunity you walked away from because self-doubt whispered that you weren't good enough. Maybe it was a heated argument that damaged a relationship. In those moments, your emotions weren't working for you, they were working against you. And that's the battle we all face every day. The strongest people in the world are not those who never feel emotions, but those who have learned how to navigate them. Because here's the truth, emotions will always be there. You cannot escape them, nor should you want to. They are signals, messengers trying to tell you something about yourself, about others, about your environment. But just like fire, emotions can either warm you or burn you, depending on how you handle them. Anger, for example, isn't inherently bad. It arises when something you care about feels threatened. It's a sign that a boundary has been crossed, that something needs to change. But if anger is left unchecked, if it controls your words and actions without restraint, it turns destructive. It can make you say things you don't mean, act in ways you later regret, and destroy relationships that took years to build. Fear is another example. It exists to protect you, to keep you from danger. But when fear dictates your life, when it stops you from taking risks, from stepping outside your comfort zone, from pursuing your dreams, that's when it becomes your opponent. Fear, when managed correctly, can push you to prepare better, to be cautious where necessary. But unmanaged fear, it keeps you stuck in the same place, paralyzed by the what-ifs that never happen. Then there's sadness. It's a natural response to loss, disappointment, and change. It's a necessary emotion, allowing you to process, to reflect, to heal. But if sadness becomes a state of being rather than a temporary phase, if it takes control and convinces you that there's no hope, no future, no way forward, then it has turned against you. The battle is not about eliminating emotions. That's impossible. The battle is about learning how to manage them so that they serve you instead of sabotage you. And that begins with awareness. Too often people react before they even understand what they're feeling. They lash out in anger without questioning why they're really upset. They drown in fear without asking whether the threat is even real. They sink into sadness without considering what steps they can take to heal. The first step to emotional mastery is pausing, taking a moment to ask, what am I feeling? Why am I feeling it? And how should I respond? Because here's what most people don't realize. Emotions don't force actions. You always have a choice. The emotion itself is just information. It's telling you something, but it's not making you do anything. You decide what happens next. Do you let your frustration control your tone? Do you let your anxiety stop you from moving forward? Do you let your sadness convince you that nothing will ever change? Or do you take control? When you begin to see emotions as tools rather than enemies, everything shifts. Anger becomes a signal to set boundaries rather than destroy relationships. Fear becomes a reminder to prepare, not a reason to avoid. Sadness becomes an invitation to reflect, not a permanent identity. You stop reacting impulsively and start responding intentionally. You gain the power to steer your life in the direction you choose rather than being thrown off course by momentary feelings. There's a reason why some people remain calm in situations that would break others. It's not that they don't feel emotions, it's that they don't let emotions drive them. They listen, they understand, they decide, and that's the difference between someone who is controlled by their emotions and someone who controls them. So the next time an emotion rises within you, don't fight it, study it. Don't let it take the wheel. Take a step back and decide where you want to go. Because when you learn to master your emotions, you stop being a slave to them. You stop letting temporary feelings create permanent consequences. And most importantly, you gain the ability to navigate life with clarity, wisdom, and strength. The strongest person in the room is not the one who demands attention, raises their voice, or dominates conversations. Strength is not measured by volume, but by control. The ability to manage oneself when emotions run high, when chaos surrounds you, and when pressure is at its peak. True strength is silent, steady, and it does not need to announce itself because it is evident how a person carries themselves, how they respond on rather than react, and how they influence others without force. We have all been in situations where someone takes over a room with noise, aggression, or dominance. At first glance, it may seem like they're the ones in charge. They speak the loudest, they assert their opinions, and they make sure everyone knows they are present. But if you observe closely, you will notice something deeper. Often, the loudest person is the most insecure, the most reactive, the least in control of themselves. They speak before thinking, act before considering, and fight battles that don't need to be fought. On the other hand, there's always someone in the room who doesn't need to prove anything. They listen more than they speak. They remain calm when others panic. They choose their words carefully and never allow emotions to dictate their actions. This is the person who holds real strength. Their presence commands respect, not because they demand it, but because they embody it. Control is not about suppressing emotions, it is about mastering them. A truly strong person does not allow anger to dictate their response, fear to limit their actions, or pride to cloud their judgment. Instead, they understand that every situation requires a thoughtful approach. They pause when others react. They analyze when others assume. They move with purpose when others move with impulse. Think about the greatest leaders, mentors, and influencers you have encountered. The ones who inspire us the most are not the ones who yell, intimidate, or force their way through life. They are the ones who exude calm confidence, who can stand firm without aggression, who can make decisions based on wisdom rather than emotion. These individuals are not driven by ego, they are driven by clarity. There is power in restraint. There is power in choosing not to engage in every argument, in knowing when to speak and when to remain silent. A strong person does not need to prove they are right in every conversation. They do not need to react to every insult or defend themselves against every criticism. They know who they are, and because of that, they do not let external forces shake them. Emotional control is one of the greatest indicators of strength. Anyone can react impulsively, but very few can remain composed when everything around them is falling apart. The person who can control their temper in a heated discussion holds far more power than the one who loses it. The person who can remain patient in the face of frustration accomplishes more than the one who lashes out. The person who can walk away from unnecessary conflict is stronger than the one who needs to have the last word. Strength is about endurance, not dominance. It is about maintaining composure under stress, about keeping your vision clear when distractions try to pull you off course. It is the ability to make decisions that serve a greater purpose rather than choices that satisfy temporary emotions. Many people mistake loudness for power, but power is in discipline. It is in consistency. It is in the ability to navigate challenges without letting them consume you. There is a reason why people are drawn to those who are calm, collected, and intentional. Chaos is common, but control is rare. The one who has mastered themselves stands out in any room, not because they demand attention, but because their presence is undeniable. They inspire confidence in others, not through words alone, but through their ability to remain steady when others are shaken. At the core of true strength is self-awareness. Those who are loud, aggressive, or easily angered often lack understanding of themselves. They let their emotions drive them, unaware that their reactions reveal their deepest insecurities. But those who are in control, who do not let the noise of the world dictate their behavior, are the ones who leave a lasting impact. They prove that true power is quiet. It does not need to be announced. It is felt. So the next time you find yourself in a situation where emotions rise, where the temptation to react impulsively is strong, remember this: The strongest person in the room is not the one who wins the argument, who speaks the loudest, or who forces their will onto others. It is the one who controls themselves, who remains composed, who moves with wisdom and purpose. That is the person who truly holds power. There is a difference between reacting and responding. Reacting is instant, emotional, and often impulsive. It comes from instinct, a survival mechanism designed to protect us. But responding is intentional, thoughtful, and rooted in intelligence. It requires control, patience, and the ability to see beyond the moment. The people who succeed in life, in relationships, in leadership, and in decision-making are not those who react to everything. They are the ones who know how to respond. Imagine someone insults you and you immediately snap back. That's a reaction. It feels good in the moment, but does it serve you? Does it strengthen your position, protect your peace, or enhance your credibility? Or does it make you look just as emotional and impulsive as the person who provoked you? Now imagine instead that you pause, assess the situation, and choose a response that maintains your dignity and control. That's intelligence. That's power. The problem with reacting is that it puts control in the hands of external forces. When you react, you are letting circumstances dictate your emotions and actions. You are giving power to the situation instead of taking charge of it. But when you respond, you take control back. You decide the outcome instead of letting the moment decide for you. Think about any heated argument you've had. When emotions run high, words are thrown carelessly, and regret often follows. Reactions fuel conflict, escalate problems, and close doors. Responses, however, create solutions. They allow space for understanding, for resolution, for maintaining control over your emotions, rather than letting them control you. This is especially true in difficult situations. When faced with setbacks, failures, or challenges, the instinctive reaction is frustration, self-doubt, or even panic. But reacting in frustration rarely leads to progress. A response, however, allows you to pause, analyze, and adjust your approach. The most successful people in the world are not the ones who never face adversity, but the ones who respond to it with strategy instead of reacting to it with emotion. Fear is another area where reaction and response make all the difference. Reacting to fear often means avoidance, running away, or making choices out of panic. Responding to fear means acknowledging it, understanding it, and using it as fuel to prepare and move forward. Fear, when reacted to, paralyzes you, but when responded to, it sharpens you. The same applies to opportunities. A reaction to an opportunity might be excitement, leading to a rushed decision without thinking through the consequences. A response, however, involves calculation, weighing the risks, and making a choice that aligns with your long-term goals. Reacting might bring quick gratification, but responding ensures lasting success. The ability to respond rather than react is a skill that must be developed. It requires self-awareness, emotional intelligence, and discipline. It means training yourself to pause before acting, to ask yourself, is this action serving me? Is it leading me toward the outcome I want? Or am I just acting on impulse? The more you practice responding instead of reacting, the more control you gain over your life. This applies to every aspect of life: relationships, career, personal growth. In relationships, reacting to misunderstandings with anger or defensiveness pushes people away. Responding with patience and communication strengthens connections. In leadership, reacting to challenges with frustration weakens authority, but responding with calm problem-solving builds trust. In personal development, reacting to failure with self-pity stalls progress, while responding with resilience leads to growth. Those who react to life are always at its mercy. They are swayed by emotions, controlled by circumstances, and stuck in cycles of regret. But those who respond to life take ownership. They understand that every situation is an opportunity to choose, not just to act, but to act wisely. They remain steady in chaos, unshaken in the face of adversity, and intentional in everything they do. The difference between reacting and responding is the difference between an ordinary life and an extraordinary one. It is the difference between being controlled by the world and being in control of yourself. Every moment presents a choice. Let instinct take over or engage your intelligence. The strongest, most successful, and most respected people in the world are not those who react to everything. They are the ones who respond. Mastering your emotions is not about burying them, ignoring them, or pretending they don't exist. It is not about becoming numb or emotionless. True mastery of emotions is about strategy, knowing how to channel them, how to use them as tools rather than letting them use you. It is about understanding that emotions are signals, not dictators, and that you have the power to decide how they influence your actions, decisions, and future. Many people confuse emotional mastery with suppression. They believe that to be strong, they must never feel angry, sad, frustrated, or afraid. But emotions are not the enemy. Suppressing them does not make them disappear. It only pushes them deeper, where they build up like pressure in a dam, waiting for the moment to explode. Suppression is not control, it is avoidance. And avoidance never leads to true power. The strongest individuals are not those who deny their emotions, but those who understand them. They recognize that anger can be turned into fuel for action, that fear can be transformed into preparation, that sadness can deepen self-awareness, and that frustration can be a sign of where they need to grow. They do not let emotions dictate their behavior, but they do listen to them and decide the best course of action. Mastering your emotions means creating space between feeling and action. The moment something triggers an emotional response, there is a brief window where you have a choice. Most people react immediately, letting their emotions take control. They say things they later regret, make impulsive decisions, or allow a single moment to dictate their entire mood. But those who master their emotions pause. They recognize the feeling, acknowledge its presence, and then ask themselves, what is the smartest way to respond? This ability to pause is what separates those who are controlled by emotions from those who control them. It is the difference between someone who lashes out in anger and someone who turns their frustration into focused determination. It is the difference between someone who allows fear to paralyze them and someone who allows it to sharpen their awareness and prepare for challenges. It is the difference between reacting and responding. And when you see emotional mastery as a strategy, you begin to approach situations differently. Instead of reacting to insults, you strategize how to maintain your dignity. Instead of letting rejection break you, you use it as motivation. Instead of allowing stress to overwhelm you, you find ways to channel it into productivity. Every emotion carries energy, and strategy is about directing that energy toward an outcome that serves you rather than harms you. Consider the greatest leaders, athletes, and visionaries. They all experience moments of doubt, frustration, and pressure. But what sets them apart is their ability to navigate those emotions with intelligence. They do not let failure destroy them. They let it refine them. They do not let criticism shake them. They use it to improve. They do not let temporary emotions dictate permanent decisions. They know that emotions are powerful, but without strategy, they become destructive rather than constructive. The truth is, emotions will always be present. You will always face moments of anger, sadness, excitement, and fear. The goal is not to eliminate these feelings, but to develop a strategy for handling them effectively. This means knowing when to step back, when to breathe, when to think before speaking, and when to shift perspective. It means training yourself to see emotions as signals that provide insight rather than commands that demand immediate reaction. One of the greatest strategies for emotional mastery is self-awareness. The more you understand yourself, your triggers, your tendencies, your patterns, the more power you have to control your reactions. When you know what makes you angry, you can prepare yourself to respond wisely instead of impulsively. When you know what makes you anxious, you can develop techniques to stay grounded. When you know what excites you, you can use that energy to push forward with purpose rather than recklessness. Emotional mastery is also about learning to detach from the immediate moment and see the bigger picture. Many conflicts, regrets, and mistakes come from reacting too quickly. But when you train yourself to step back and ask, what outcome do I want from this situation? You gain control over your responses. You start making choices that align with your long-term goals rather than your short-term emotions. The ability to manage emotions is one of the most powerful skills anyone can develop, is what allows people to handle pressure without breaking, to maintain composure in chaos, and to turn setbacks into stepping stones. It is not about pretending to be unaffected. It is about deciding how to use emotions in a way that strengthens rather than weakens you. So the next time you feel overwhelmed by emotion, remind yourself it is not about suppressing it. It is about strategizing. It is about choosing how to respond in a way that serves your highest potential, because true strength is not found in ignoring emotions. It is found in mastering them. Every emotion you feel is trying to tell you something. It is a signal, a message from within, pointing to something deeper. But the question is, are you listening? Most people don't. They either ignore their emotions, suppress them, or let them take complete control. But emotions are not random. They are feedback. They reveal what matters, what needs to change, and what deserves attention. And when you learn to listen, you gain a powerful advantage: the ability to understand yourself, make better decisions, and navigate life with clarity. Fear, for example, is often seen as a weakness. People try to push it away, pretend it isn't there, or allow it to paralyze them. But fear isn't the enemy. It's a warning system telling you that something requires preparation, caution, or courage. It's not there to stop you, it's there to sharpen you. When you listen to fear, you can analyze whether it's a real danger or just a limiting belief. You can prepare instead of panic. You can move forward with strategy instead of hesitation. Anger is another misunderstood emotion. Most people either explode in it or suppress it, thinking it's something to be ashamed of. But anger is a message too. It often signals that a boundary has been crossed, that something you deeply value is being threatened. Instead of reacting impulsively, ask yourself, what is my anger trying to tell me? Is it about injustice? Is it about feeling unheard? Is it about something unresolved within me? When you listen, you can channel anger into assertiveness, into taking action that serves you rather than destroys you. Sadness is a message of reflection. It signals loss, disappointment, or the need to slow down and process something. Instead of avoiding it, listen. What is it teaching you? Maybe it's showing you what truly mattered. Maybe it's urging you to change direction. Maybe it's reminding you to heal. When you embrace sadness as a teacher rather than an enemy, you come out stronger, wiser, and more connected to yourself. Even positive emotions carry messages. Excitement reveals what energizes you. When something excites you, it's a clue that you're aligned with something meaningful. It's an invitation to explore further, to take action towards something that fulfills you. Pay attention to what lights you up. It's often a guide to your purpose. Frustration, though uncomfortable, is a sign that you're ready for growth. It tells you that your current situation no longer matches your expectations or abilities. It's a message to level up, to seek solutions, to improve. Those who listen to their frustration don't just complain, they innovate, they adapt, they push forward. Jealousy is another emotion people don't like to admit. But instead of feeling guilty about it, listen to it. It often reveals what you desire but have been afraid to pursue. If you feel jealousy towards someone's success, maybe it's because you have untapped potential in that area. Instead of resenting them, use it as motivation to develop your own path. Guilt, when healthy, is a message of accountability. It tells you that something you did is not in alignment with your values. Instead of drowning in guilt or dismissing it, listen to it. Is there something to correct, something to learn, something to make right? Guilt can either weigh you down or guide you toward integrity. The choice is in how you respond. The key to emotional mastery is not avoidance or overindulgence, it's awareness. When you listen to your emotions without letting them take over, you gain insight. You make decisions based on wisdom rather than impulse. You navigate relationships with understanding rather than reactivity. You take control of your life rather than being controlled by fleeting feelings. This doesn't mean acting on every emotion immediately. It means observing them, questioning them, and deciding the best response. Just because you feel fear doesn't mean you should run. Just because you feel anger doesn't mean you should attack. Just because you feel sad doesn't mean you should sink into despair. The power is in the pause, the ability to listen before reacting, before. Imagine how different life would be if you treated emotions as guides rather than obstacles. Instead of resisting them, you would decode them. Instead of being overwhelmed by them, you would understand them. Instead of letting them control you, you would use them to grow. That is the real power of emotional intelligence. The ability to hear the messages your emotions are sending and respond with wisdom. So the next time you feel something strongly, stop and ask, what is this emotion trying to tell me? What action, if any, should I take? How can I use this to my advantage? Because every emotion carries a message. The only question is, are you listening? When you control your emotions, you control the outcome. This simple truth separates those who react from those who lead, those who struggle from those who succeed. Every situation you face comes with a choice. Will you let your emotions dictate your response, or will you take charge and determine the direction of the moment? The difference is subtle but powerful. Reacting is immediate, often impulsive, fueled by unchecked feelings. But responding with control is intentional, strategic, and ultimately more effective. Think about the moments when emotions have gotten the best of you. Perhaps it was an argument where you said something you regretted, or a business decision made in frustration that backfired. Maybe it was a personal challenge where fear paralyzed you or anger drove you to act recklessly. In those moments, emotions took control, and as a result, the outcome slipped out of your hands. But when you learn to master your emotions, you don't let them dictate your actions. You make decisions based on wisdom rather than impulse. Imagine a leader in a high-pressure situation. They face criticism, setbacks, and unexpected challenges. The average person might react with frustration, defensiveness, or even panic. But a great leader remains composed, not because they don't feel the stress, but because they know that emotions left unchecked can lead to poor judgment. Instead of lashing out, they assess. Instead of blaming, they strategize. Instead of reacting, they respond. And because they remain in control, they shape the outcome instead of being shaped by it. This level of control is not about suppressing emotions, it's about managing them. It's about understanding that emotions are signals, but they don't have to be commands. Just because you feel fear doesn't mean you should run. Just because you feel anger doesn't mean you should attack. Just because you feel discouraged doesn't mean you should give up. The most successful people in any field are those who acknowledge their emotions, but do not allow them to make decisions for them. Think of an athlete competing in a championship game. The pressure is immense. Their body is flooded with adrenaline. Their mind is racing. If they allow those emotions to take control, they might make a reckless move, lose focus, or crumble under the weight of the moment. But the best athletes use that energy to sharpen their performance. They channel the adrenaline into intensity, the nerves into focus, the pressure into precision. They control their emotions, and in doing so, they control the game. The same principle applies in everyday life. Relationships thrive when emotions are managed with care. Arguments de-escalate when one person chooses control over impulse. Careers advance when professionals remain composed under pressure. Opportunities expand when individuals refuse to let fear hold them back. The ability to regulate emotions determines the quality of decisions, interactions, and ultimately success. But emotional control does not mean emotional avoidance. It's not about becoming cold or detached. It's about awareness, discipline, and choice. When you feel frustration rising, you pause and ask, what is the best way to handle this? When fear grips you, you acknowledge it, but remind yourself, I am capable of pushing through. When anger flares, you step back and decide, how can I address this without regret? This shift from reaction to response is where true power lies. History is full of examples of individuals who changed the course of events by controlling their emotions. A great leader in the face of crisis who remained calm and turned the tide. A visionary who refused to let failure discourage them, using it instead as fuel. A negotiator who diffused tension by staying composed instead of escalating the conflict. These people didn't avoid emotions, they mastered them. They understood that emotional intelligence is just as important as knowledge, skill, or talent. The world is unpredictable. People will test your patience. Circumstances will challenge your stability. Life will throw obstacles in your path. But if you master your emotions, you will master the way you respond to all of it. You will remain unshaken when others panic. You will stay focused when others lose direction. You will make choices that lead to success rather than ones driven by impulse. Every interaction, every challenge, every decision carries an opportunity. The opportunity to react and lose control, or to respond and steer the outcome in your favor. The more you strengthen your ability to manage emotions, the more influence you have over the results in your life. Because when you control your emotions, you control the outcome. Mastering your emotions is not about denying what you feel, but about understanding and directing those feelings toward the right response. Every emotion carries a message, but it's your ability to manage it that determines whether it will serve you or sabotage you. The strongest people are not those who never feel anger, fear, or frustration. They are those who refuse to let those emotions control their actions. When you control your emotions, you take control of your decisions, your relationships, and ultimately your destiny. Life will always test your patience, challenge your resolve, and provoke reactions, but your power lies in your ability to pause, assess, and respond wisely. The choice is always yours. React impulsively and risk losing control, or remain composed and shape the outcome in your favor. True strength is found in self-mastery. Thank you for listening, and may you always lead with wisdom and control.